As you're well aware, Specialized, who makes some of the most premium products in the cycling industry, has launched 2 new gravel wheel sets. The CLX 3 and the Roval Aero Terra, or whatever it is. Today's video is not about those products. I'm sure they're absolutely fine. It's about the marketing for those products. And I don't claim to be an expert in aerodynamics. I don't claim to be an expert in carbon fiber spoke construction, but I'm going to use their data and what they say to show how they use their marketing to manipulate you. And remember, this is the same company that brings you such brilliant marketing as this. This is their wonderful Pathfinder tires. Specialized. Pedal the planet forward. What does that mean? In the comments, let's take it easy on the athletes. I can assure you that Sophia does not make a living off of the prize money she collects for winning all the races she does. She makes her money being a brand representative. And of course, as part of that, you have to represent the brand's product. That's the only way you're going to put food on the table. Now, of course, in Specialized's case, that's easy to do because they make quality products. Additionally, the engineers at Specialized, I'm sure they're reputable engineers that do good work. But the problem is sometimes the engineering and marketing interfaces are a little fuzzy, and marketers may not have the same ethics and standards that engineers do when making statements. And that's going to be obvious through this video. The flagship wheel is this Terra Aero. You can see the properties up there of this wheel, but they're relatively light, and the main feature is that wide bead on them. To me, the real game changer though is the lightweight wheels, which are obviously just over 1,000 grams, and they also have a relatively wide shoulder at almost 5 millimeters. And once again, like their other wheel, super expensive. This is the rather good wheel they're updating. You'll note that it's not as wide as modern gravel rims, so obviously they're going to improve that. And it's got a relatively narrow bead hook compared to their latest offerings. I'll point out to you though, it's got DT Swiss Aerolite spokes on it rather than the carbon ones.
The Terra Aero CLX wheel set is for riders chasing segment wins.
Let's just back this up. I would strongly recommend, if you're riding, do not wear a tied scarf around your neck. It's a safety issue.
Segment wins, pro level pacing, and maximum aerodynamics across the long exposed straightaways. The Terra Aero CLX wheel set.
If aero is everything, why are you testing it with the least aero bike possible? Specialized, I know that there is a new bike coming out, but oh, that's weak.
There's the same level of aerodynamic discipline historically reserved for World Tour races. Riders save 5.84 watts. Thanks to the front rim's truncated airfoil, the 50mm deep rim provides riders with the stability of a shallow.
Okay, first question is 5.84 watts versus what? I believe that's the CLX2.
While still providing the same aerodynamic benefits of a 70mm deep rim. The 45mm deep rear rim balances out the wheel set, bringing the total weight down to 1,340 grams. The 38.5mm external width and 27mm internal width supports modern 35 to 60 race tires, giving riders the choice to select the best tires for the terrain. To get riders across the line, the 5.38mm flat stop bead hooks require 90.
Well, let's look at this. 91%. Remember that number. Also, there's a little bit too much precision here. If you've measured carbon bead hooks, putting it to 2 decimal places is absolutely ridiculous. That's a 5.4 millimeter bead with a hook in it.
1% more energy to flat when compared to the previous class-leading Terra 2.
Where is the evidence that the Terra 2 is class-leading? I couldn't find any reference to it on the internet, and I couldn't find any reference on their website to testing.
While also providing additional aerodynamic benefits and 20% more strength.
They're stronger in a tensile test, maybe in a lateral test, but I'm going to ask people something. How many people have failed a CX ray spoke in the body or the aero section of it? That's what a tensile test is. I certainly haven't over all my years of using this type of spoke. So the increase in strength may be irrelevant because the test is not applicable to real world. Usually you end up getting something in your spokes, or they fail at a connection due to corrosion or something of the sort. If you disagree with me, light me up in the comments. Also, the aerodynamic benefits compared to what? We'll see in a second where that's coming from.
When compared to steel spokes, the low flange center lock hubs feature the DT Swiss EXP internals with 36 tooth ratchets that provide
36 tooth. I thought the state of the art was 54 with DT Swiss or one of those new 360 ratchets or whatever they've got. Let's look at their website propaganda on these wheels. Of course, 91% more flat, and the bead, as I've discussed before. I'm not disputing the shape is more aero. But look at this, composite spokes. Roval Aero composite spokes outperform round profiles. The previous iteration, the CLX2, had bladed steel aero spokes on it. Notice they're completely silent about that, and there's a reason. I'll get into that in a separate spoke section. But I believe what they're comparing this to is the Roval Control World Cup wheels, which have Eris round spokes on them. I have no idea how you could even use these wheels to make a comparison, as they're boost spacing and can't even fit into a gravel bike. Plus, once again, who uses round spokes in high-end gravel wheels? Exactly no one. Let's take a brief look now at the CLX3 propaganda.
and all-terrain control. The optimized carbon layout brings the total weight down to 1,079 grams, while providing a 21.52% improvement in lateral compliance. That gives.
Okay, let's stop right there. How do you measure lateral compliance down to 2 decimal places? But there's a bigger problem. Has anyone ever complained about lateral compliance, particularly for the CLX2? I don't think so. And maybe someone can prove me wrong, but when has lateral compliance ever been an issue in a wheel? Mostly it's vertical compliance. So this is rather odd.
To get riders across the line, the 4.86 millimeter flat stop bead hooks require 91% more energy.
Okay, let's hold it right there. This has a narrower bead than the Aero one, but still requires 91%. What that tells me is that either they only did one test, which is on this wheel set, or you don't have to make the bead as wide because you get the same results. So the Terra might be a little heavy.
Flat, when compared to the previous class-leading Terra 2.
The Terra 2 is a 2.5 millimeter bead. Where is the evidence that it is class leading? I couldn't find anything on the Specialized website, and my internet searches did not provide me with any evidence of this claim. If we look at the interweb propaganda, they repeat the 21.52% improvement in lateral compliance. Once again, no idea how that's important. And the 91% more force to flat. And once again, I'm going to ask you, did they do one test, or did the two rims test the same? The next video is the Creator Series. And right off the bat, you can see that we've got the Specialized wind tunnel. And Parker 88 hits it on the head when he says, "Cute wheels, show the people the new Crocs."
I don't think anyone's ever done something this extreme before. We had a lot of concerns about the shape going in.
That's interesting. You would swear that Specialized has invented wide aero gravel. I disagree with that. Check out my video review of these XM carbon speed wheels. They're wide. They've also got a blunted shape, which has been around for at least 20 years in the cycling industry. I can remember back in the day the cam tails, and I had these fantastic head Stinger 4 and Stinger 9 tubulars. I'm not questioning that they're different. If you look on the right here, that is my carbon speed rim profile as compared to the Specialized on the left. What I'm saying is it's not a radical departure or some new innovation, but they make it sound that way.
Aero has become a huge aspect, a huge growing topic in gravel, right? As gravel gets more and more professional and more competitive, speeds keep going up and up. And as we all know, the faster you ride, the more important aerodynamics becomes. As a gravel.
So why are you putting your riders on that frame then? For goodness sakes.
The evolution definitely gone more road-esque in a lot of ways, but then at the same time really taking in a lot of the considerations from the mountain bike side around durability, ride quality, lightweight. So it was pretty clear to us from almost day one that we're going to need two different wheels.
Of course you are. The dentists and investment bankers throughout the world are going to thank you for this. I could have sliced and diced this video a little more, but let's just move on to the next item. The final piece of propaganda is the 80-minute long podcast with Ben Capron here. What's more amazing, as summed up in the comments, is this. Alex Gonzalez MI, the wheels are amazing, and I definitely want a pair. But what's more amazing is you did an 80-minute podcast just about them. I love you.
The Terra CLX 3, the lightest gravel wheel that's ever been created, and the Terra Aero, the most aerodynamic and fastest gravel wheel ever created. And
where's the data to prove your aerodynamic claims? A white paper, a test, anything.
It are two amazing humans who have.
If you want to do a fun drinking game, I know a lot of you are beyond drinking games that watch this, but what you do is put a whole bunch of cold beer in the fridge and take a slug every time Ben says the word amazing. You will not make it through a single one of his podcasts.
That a rider would get just from the aerodynamics.
I mean, depending on the exact tire size, but around 4.5 to 5 watts.
5 watts.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's from our previous generation. That was like a mid-depth, lower profile wheel. But even then, going to some of the other aero wheels out there, like, yeah, you're seeing a watt or two in the different cases. Yeah. And as you go wider or a larger tire, the performance goes bigger. So one of the things, again, we optimized for larger tires. So the internal is a 27.
Hang on, I want to ask Sophia, does 5 watts matter?
For me, 5 watts is huge.
Let's review this. So what they're saying is their old, rather conventional wheel set, you're only getting 5 watts. And trust me, go on Pink Bike or somewhere. You're going to see CLX 2s for sale all over the place. Now for Sophia, a world-class racer, 5 watts is huge. And notice also they said that compared to their competitors' aero wheels, they may gain 1 or 2 watts. Like, I mean, get an aero water bottle and save yourself a small fortune.
And what about strength? Are these things up to the task?
No, that was one of the really cool things about working with Aeros. Like, one, they're substantially stronger, 50% stronger than steel in the bending or the pulling, right? And so you have the confidence that, again, you're delivering a better product, it's lighter, it's stronger, and then the dampened feel. But the thing that was really cool, and I think is a general knock on composite spokes, is to get the durability that you need, you tend to have a pretty wide carbon spoke. And you just look at the industry, a lot of people have talked about it, like carbon spokes are slower than steel. We actually spend a lot of time on these spokes to thin them out as much as possible, reduce the end rounds to bring that blade as close to the rim as possible so that you still have the same aerodynamic benefit as steel spokes.
Let's unpack this a little bit. First of all, In their advertising, they previously said a 20% strength gain. Now we're up to 50%. Also, he said that these spokes are as aerodynamic as steel spokes. But once again, there's no evidence of this anywhere. And we're going to get to that in the spoke section.
At the end of the day, we're human beings, right?
Which can be manipulated.
And it's like, we can talk about all the rational stuff, how much more force to pinch flat, 84 grams, all that. But at the end of the day, we're driven emotionally, right? If we're in the right headspace and our heart is in it and we're excited about something, it's an entirely different thing. And looking at the bike, looking at the wheels, you talked about the sound. These are all things that light us up as like beings, you know? And then we can really unleash our best performance. And whether you're racing.
This is where I have to stop listening to this. And I've already listened to it twice and taken notes. But essentially, there's all the engineering and technical stuff. And now we're getting into it looks good, and that makes us faster. This is a full-on marketing pitch. Later in the video, Sophia will discuss how using 2 sets of wheels and mixing and matching them to optimize also works. And for her, fine. But for most of us that don't have free stuff given to us or are on limited incomes, this is just not a reality. So it's time to move on to the final topic, which is spokes. To understand more about the carbon fiber spokes and specialized claims about improvement, well, let's go to the manufacturer's website, because this is going to be a wealth of information. So here we are. Here's the spokes. I guess these are the new generation ones. And then we come down. So the first claim they say is they've made millions of carbon fiber spokes. To me, millions means plural, which means at least 2 million carbon fiber spokes. If you assume with spares, 50 spokes per wheel set, that's 40,000 wheel sets. I'm having a hard time with this. Maybe I'm wrong. Also, I won't go through it, but one of their claims is they don't make their spokes in China. Okay, fair enough. But where do they make them? They don't claim they make them in the US, so they're likely made in Taiwan. I could be wrong. The next thing is, I don't know who writes their advertising or their website script, but most of us that are watching this video are professionals or over 40 years old and don't want to be babied. So I don't understand their tact here. Let's go to aerodynamic performance. Look at that, nothing but that thing for drag. Well, let's use their words. We've all seen the data. It's top tier, kids. No, I actually haven't seen any data, and searching through your website, there is no data on this. So yeah, fair enough, but you can go through and read this more if you'd like. But it's just all a bunch of marketing crap. There is no substance to anything on their website. After consulting with AI, getting some nebulous answers, I went to the internet, and specifically YouTube, and Scribe Cycling has an actual video on carbon versus steel spokes and which one's faster. To this point in the video, Scribe discusses how clearly the Alpina spoke that they're using on their wheels is more aero than a 5mm bladed carbon spoke. Then goes into how they're developing a new carbon spoke.
Yeah, that is not only looks incredible, but carried the same aerodynamic performance as our aero like steel spoke. Do you want to give us a quick tease as to what it is? Yeah, well, this is what we have. And how many prototypes have we? Maybe like 10 to 50.
Our friends at Scribe Cycle provide you with detailed spoke testing. This is rather convenient though, because what they do is they show you a conventional carbon spoke, not referenced, versus a CX ray type spoke. And you can clearly see there's less drag on the steel spoke. Then they introduce in their video that they have redefined the carbon spoke and gotten it more aero. But you'll notice in here conveniently that the steel spoke is not plotted. The good news is, though, they gave me the data that I actually plotted it. And guess what? Steel still clearly wins the day. The reason Scribe did this is they've clearly made an improvement over a carbon spoke with their new carbon spoke, but they still can't match the much smaller steel spoke. Here's another marketing trick across all industries. What they'll do is present the data with a reduced y-axis scale. So what I'm saying is the view here is a lot less than the reality, and I've sort of fudge plotted it here with the y-axis starting at 0. So when you have a much more narrow axis, it makes any difference a lot bigger than what it is in reality relative to what you're comparing it to. Where this gets a little confusing is, contrary to what they state in their video, when called upon or questioned by China Cycling, they state the opposite, that aero spokes remain faster, whether it's in a group or individual testing. So Scribe, what do you mean? If you like this content about marketing, one recommendation I would have is to read this book here called The Art of Thinking Clearly. It will open your eyes to the tricks that people can pull on you with marketing. I could have made this video a lot longer. I could have dwelled on every word said in every piece of propaganda that Specialized has produced around these new gravel wheels. I'm not going to do that. I think it's better for me to give you the tools to look through this stuff and critically review it so you too can be aware of the bike industry marketing BS. Now, of course, the good news is Specialized, like many of the other manufacturers, do make quality products. It's just that a lot of the times they present claims as fact. And it may very well be true that all the testing and everything I've questioned in this video has sound engineering backup to it, but they just don't present it. And I think we as consumers should call them on these claims. So look, I'm done here today. And with that, if you disagree with me, I've made a mistake, you just want to vent, put in the comments down below. And of course, like, subscribe, and get out there and ride hard because the weather is fantastic.